Go.
Hello, my name is John Adams. I was born on October 30th, 1735 in the Massachusetts Bay Colony. My father was a farmer and craftsman, but no one knew much about my mother. I was a Harvard graduate when I was 15. During the war, I went to France to get war funds and keep peace. When I was 30, I was invited to the First Continental Congress and then to the second a year later. I launched my career as a lawyer in 1778. 3 years later, I signed the Treaty of Paris in 1781, which ended the war. I also signed the Declaration of Independence. After the war, I became the first U.S. minister to England in 1785. In 1792, I became the first vice president of the United States, and in 1797, I became the second president of the U.S. It is rumored I died at age 90 in 1826 on July 4th, which ironically is the 50th anniversary of independence.
Hello, I am George Rogers Clark. I was born on November 19, 1752 in Alabama Country. I have 4 sisters and 5 brothers. I have a father named John. I have a mother named Anne. By the 1770s, me and some other colonists had gone into the territory of Kentucky to claim new land. I used survival skills to join them. However, Indian tribes were fighting for the British. I came up with a plan to defend the settlers by gaining control over the Northwest Territory. I asked Virginia for support. Governor Patrick Henry acceded to my plan and gave me command of the mission. Me and 179 men marched to Pulaski and took Fort Sackville at Vinson. There on July 4, 1778, with no exchange of gunfire, I then took control of a prairie. I then negotiated with several Indian tribes. I convinced them to stop fighting for the British. After the war in 1809, I was seriously burned on my leg and I was amputated. I died on February 13, 1818, on my sister's farm outside of Louisville, Kentucky. I was 65 years old.
I was the first president of the United States. I also fought for the British in the French and Indian War. I was the commanding officer of the victorious American forces in the Revolutionary War. I was named the president of the Continental Convention. I served 2 terms as president, during which I invented the cabinet. My advisors and tried to calm the fighting between the 2 new political parties, the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans. After my 2nd term, I retired to my home in Mount Vernon to live a quiet life with my wife, Martha.
Hi, my name is Margaret Catherine Moore. I was born on November 29, 1752, in Anson, South Carolina, to Charles and Mary Moore. At age 15, I married Andrew Berry and became Margaret Catherine Berry. 2 years later, we moved to Spartanburg County, 2 miles from Walnut Grove. I was an excellent horsewoman and was familiar with the wilderness and Indian trails around my plantation. A couple years later, the Revolutionary War broke out. The Revolutionary War broke out in 1775. I volunteered in the war by sending supplies with bandages and other things. After a bit, I thought I needed to help more, so I went to help the doctors and nurses at the troops base. I helped bandage hurt soldiers and helped get food for soldiers. Once I tied my 2-year-old daughter to a bedpost to go save my husband. Sometimes I would go back home and British troops would come and demand whereabouts of my husband and his troop. When I refused, they would tie me up and hit me 3 times with a leash. It had happened twice. The 2nd time, I escaped with my horse. I was swimming my horse across the rising waters of the Lafayette River to safety. To this day, my spirit lives on at Walnut Grove. I died September 29, 1823 in South Carolina.
Okay.
Hi, I am Frances Mary.
I was born on January 10th, 1732, on my family plantation in Berkeley County, South Carolina. Electing to remain unmanned, I began working on my family's plantation. In 1773, I achieved my goal when I bought a plantation on the Santee River. I was nicknamed the Swamp Fox because I was swift as a fox in the swamp. I served in the American Revolutionary War. On April 26, 1780, I completed a daring rescue mission. I rescued many American soldiers. On August 15, 1781, I was promoted to Brigadier General. I married Mary Esther on April 20th, 1786. After the war, I returned to my plantation. My plantation had been burnt during the war. I died on February 22nd, 1795 at the age of 69. I died at Palm Bluff in Orangeburg County, South Carolina.
Hi, my name is Mercy Otis Warren. I was born in West Barnstable, Massachusetts on September 14, 1728. My parents' names were Mary Eileen and James Otis Sr. I was 3 of 13 children, but most of them died at birth. I was born to a lot of boys. I was the only girl. I got married to James Warren after a 6-year engagement. We were second cousins. I gave birth to 5 children named James, my father, Winslow, Henry, Charles, and James Warren Sr. I listened to secret plans. One of my first writings for the war was Massachusetts Song of Liberty. It became popular in the 13 colonies. My first published play was Alfredor. It was published anonymously, and it supported the war. I wrote a play that mocked the British and turned loyalists into patriots. One of my poems is called The Group of Farce. Some of my quotes were, "Study of the human character opens at once, a beautiful and deformed picture of the soul. It may be a mistake that main and state of a nature is more disposed to cruelly than courageously, and democratic principles are the result of equality of conditions." When I was 77, I wrote my final book called Rise, Progress, and Termination. In 1808, my husband died. I died in 1814 when I was 86. I was buried at my husband's side in Burial Hill in Plymouth, Massachusetts.
Hi, my name is Benjamin Franklin. I was born on January 17th, 1706. I lived in Boston, Massachusetts. My father's name was Josiah and my mother's was Abia. I was the 8th child out of 16. My family was big. I had 9 sisters and 7 brothers. I loved to read. I read a book about swimming and then I taught myself how to swim. I created a lot of things. I created bifocals, the Franklin stove, lightning rod, glass harmonica, odometer, map of the Gulf Stream, and the daylight savings time. I was a wise man and I chose my words wisely. I went to Paris to sign the peace treaty. I married my wife Deborah Reed in 1730. She was the best thing that ever happened to my life. After Deborah died, I lived with my daughter and she took care of me since I was very elderly. I peacefully died on April 17, 1790. I was 84 years of age when I died. My father was a candle and soap maker, and my mother, Abia, was a coffee maker. Abia was from the Folgers family, and the Folgers family was famous for their coffee. I had 3 children, 1 daughter and 2 sons.
Hi, my name is John Paul Jones. I was born on July 6, 1747 in Scotland. I lived with my mother and my father until I turned 13. I had an older brother. He sailed for several years aboard a number of ships. He joined the American Navy to fight against Britain. He became first lieutenant on the 22nd of 1775 during the Revolutionary War. In the summer of 1775, I joined the Navy. I sailed for several years and on many ships. The most important was in the Revolutionary War against the Serbians. Both our ships were badly damaged when the British captain asked if I was ready to surrender. I said, "Sir, I have not yet begun to fight," and the service surrendered. I am sometimes called the father of the United States Navy. In May of 1790, I went to Paris where I stayed in retirement for the rest of my life. I died July 18, 1792 at age 45 from an illness.
Salutations. My name is Margaret de Lafayette. I was born in Chavignac, France, 1757. My dad, Michael de Lafayette, was a soldier and died in war. My mom, Mary de Lafayette, died in 1770, so now I have a big inheritance. I also married Mary Adrien when we were 14. We had 4 kids. I was inspired by hearing that the Revolutionary War started, and I joined to help out. I started out as a major general. I did not know that I was going to become one of America's greatest leaders. I fought alongside General Washington in the Battle of Valley Forge. I returned to France to see my wife and baby boy after we won freedom from the British. I died in Paris, France, 4 months until my 77th birthday. George Washington sprinkled American soil over my grave.
Hi, my name is Phyllis Wheatley. I was born on May 8, 1753 in West Africa. I was captured in 1761. I arrived in North America on July 11, 1761. When I was 7, I was sold to John Wheatley. He lives in Boston, Massachusetts. A little after that, John made me get baptized, so I did. John named me Phyllis from the ship I came to America in. When I was 12, I wrote and published my first poem. I helped in the Revolutionary War by writing poems to encourage the Continental Army to work their best. I sent my poems to George Washington, the leader of the Continental Army. And finally, we won the war with my poems and encouraging them to do their best. After the war, George Washington invited me to his home to thank me for my effort and support in writing poems to him and the rest of the Continental Army. In 1778, my master, John Wheatley, died. I died 6 years later on December 5, 1784, at age 31.